Hi, I'm Brainerd Carey.
Hi, I'm Delia Carey. Together we are an art team that call ourselves Praxis.
And today we're going to tell you a little bit about how we got into the Whitney Biennial. And it started with a pop up in the East Village. You know,
Yes, we had a studio in the East Village in New York City on 10th Street. A very small studio, actually. It was like, I don't know, super small, right? It was like 300 square feet or something like that. And we were having shows there. We were exhibiting our work out of the studio. And at that time, we also were about to have a child.
and that was a kind of a big deal, right? We new parents weren't sure what to expect, didn't have much of an income at all. And so we're both doing freelance things. And so, the child gave us a little more incentive to, what do we want to do? What's our dream? And one of our dreams was to be in the Whitney Biennial, like many artists. And I remember asking places around, other galleries, nonprofits, like, how do people get into the Whitney Biennial? And they said things like, oh, you have to be kind of chosen. It's there is no way. It's kind of like a closed circle is the information we got, right? But we wanted to be in anyway. And
Well, the,
and then you saw something in the newspaper, right, about the biennial that was the curators that were being chosen, I think, right?
Yeah, so we saw the curators that were being chosen, but at that time we also, when we were asking questions about, oh, okay, so how do you get in? What do you need to do? Can you apply? And you cannot apply. You actually do not apply for the Whitney Biennial, right? They have to choose you. But at that time, we said to ourselves, well, it doesn't matter. I think we are going to apply. And then since we got all the information, we got a lot of research doing, digging who were the curators, who was doing what, in what kind of department, and we are conceptual artists. So we got the information of who was doing what, and then we decided to send, basically, like, apply. That's what we decided to
Well,
do.
we sent a letter. We sent a letter to the curator, and of course we didn't get a reply. That probably sounds familiar if you're an artist that have sent things to curators. So I think we sent another letter, and then I think we sent a third letter, and then no
We
reply.
actually sent it, I think, about five to six times. We sent a letter.
I mean, we really wanted this, right? We wanted a response. We thought, can't we get a response at least? And then we saw in the newspaper that there was a biennial coordinator, they called it, right?
Yes, the person that was, yeah, coordinating the show, but it wasn't really any specific curator or anything of any department.
So then we sent another letter to that person as well. And it was the same letter as, all the exact content of the letter is broken down in our book, but essentially we told them that we're two artists that work together, and we knew that the Whitney had some kind of theme, but we didn't know what its theme was. But we kind of said, our art is sort of between this and this, so something like that. But it was honestly a little bit vague what we told them we were doing exactly, or what our framework was. But then, yeah, after sending several letters, what else did we do? We were doing some kind of meditation too, right? We wanted to really, like, how do you get your inner mind, yourself totally focused on this happening? How do you manifest it, essentially, right? And
Yeah, we were doing a state of mind. We were actually bringing ourselves into a space where we could feel that we really wanted this and we could achieve it in a spiritual state, right? And but before going to the spiritual state, I want to also add that we did send them also a video. We did send our work with the letter. It wasn't just a letter alone. It was our work with the letter. And then we were starting to do every single day a practice, some type of a spiritual practice, that we will tell you more about. It's all in the book, because it's step by step, right?
yeah, I mean, to not spend too much time on that, we want to get right to, exactly how does this happen.
Mm.
And so, as Delia said, we did this kind of deep meditation where we would visualize and see ourselves, in the biennial, but also see ourselves talking to people in the biennial and them saying, hey, we'd like you to be in the biennial. And um and and that was partly because, when you want something, right, and this is about wanting something really big, it has to, or that was our thought at the time, right, that it has to come from a spiritual place. Can't be just about self-aggrandizement, or just another great goal. It was that too, but for us it was also meaningful that as our very small child was growing up, that we would be modeling to him that we were doing what we loved. I mean, that was part of the spiritual journey, right? Like of the meditation, of trying to make it come true from an internal place, and get rid of the sort of self doubt of, are we good enough? Are we
Mm-hmm.
worthy? Right? I mean,
Right,
is that
exactly.
what you
We
would
need,
say?
yeah, that we needed to align ourselves with it, with whatever you wish in the moment, whatever you want to achieve. You kind of have to align with it and feel comfortable on your own skin, on your own self, and how do you want to bring this forward into the world. And that way, it only happens if you kind of like visualize it in a way. And those are all the exercises and practices that we follow, and they kind of work. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, because we got in, that was part of it. So we're breaking it all down for you. But
Mm,
part of it is the self doubt, right? It's like you want something like the Whitney Biennial, you want something like a major show, but do you have doubts that you might not get it, or this isn't really the timing, or they're not choosing people like you. There's that, and I think a kind of spiritual side of kind of recognizing within yourself that you can see it actually happening. I think that's part of the idea of visualizing and manifestation, that it removes a certain kind of self-doubt, or that you have all these stepping stones to do. Do you think?
yes, exactly. Yes, and it also has. I mean, but the most important thing I think is to be able to just bring yourself into a peace state of mind, so this all of this can manifest itself. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? So but it's very difficult for us in a daily life to bring ourselves into a state of mind where you could just allow things develop in their own way and in
Well,
their
and
own.
especially as new parents, we have a lot on our plate. There's a lot going on. There's financial strains. We're trying to make money.
A lot of
I'm
stress,
being a handyman, running around doing all these things. Delia's doing all this freelance work. So there's that pressure too.
taking
That
care of the baby.
yeah, understanding like how do you take care of a
Mm,
baby.
mm,
Um, so there's that. But I think also there's something with you. You have a dream. How do you really align yourself with that dream? And I don't think we can really like uh, like overestimate the value of what it means to say, I want that. I really want that. That's meaningful to me. Not just like it would be great if we got in the Whitney, long shot. Let's see if we do. But how do you really align yourself with your dream? How do you really feel like I'm worthy of that dream? I want that dream. I'm going for that dream. I mean, I think that's part of the spiritual process we're talking about, right? Or why we did that meditation. I mean,
yes, it's because we needed that in our lives, because our lives in a way was very chaotic, right? We just had a child, we needed to make money, we wanted our art dreams to come true. So you kind of have to start from a very safe space, and a very it's a practice basically, right? It's like when we practice art, it's a very rigor practice that you keep on working in every single day to be able to become in that state where you are. And then from that state of mind, that peace of mind, everything else can kind of manifest itself,
I mean,
right?
I think there was also personal things, right? There's both our parents were in the arts in various ways, and our parents had, in some ways, ambivalent relationships with the arts, right? Because like all parents, they had to figure out also how to make a living, and so sometimes that kind of rubs up against your feeling about the arts, right? That's
Mm.
where sometimes bitterness or resentment comes in, like, the art world doesn't support me anyway, or doesn't want me, or I'm not in the right club, or I'm not in the right place or the right city. So, as I remember you saying, that was part of having a child, right? And who do we want to be for that child? We wanted to be the dreamers that we want him to be. We want him to see us achieving our dreams, even though he was only an infant. We wanted him to
Yes,
feel
but
that.
right, but even if it's an infant, everything starts from the beginning, right? I mean, it's not like we're gonna be giving a lesson in parenting, but it's about your child can feel everything even if they don't even know how to speak, right? So they can feel like your energy. Are you happy? You're not happy? Are you doing what you love? You're not doing what you love? Are you frustrated? So then therefore we wanted to model that for him so he could intake all this incredible energy from the outside who are his parents, but it's because for a child the parents is everything at the beginning, right? So that's where they get all this energy from. So we needed and we wanted him to feel secure in himself by feeling that we were secure in ourselves and we had peace of mind, basically.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? What a child feels, right? Because of course, if the parents are tense, if they're not getting along, and this can be typical of two artists in a relationship, right? Artists, tend to have
Yes.
big egos. They each want to be seen some way. So there's often competition among artists, let alone the tension that comes into a relationship when you're having a new child and you really don't know how to take care of it and are trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part of our struggle, right, is also how do we continue to love one another
Mm-hmm.
as we are and still do under these kind of tense circumstances, and at the same time also have our dream and
Create at the same time create do our art, right? So it's very it's actually difficult to put all of that in a very easy state of mind, and the only way to do it in a way is practice, practice every single day and very specific steps. But we explain all of this in the book that we wrote,
well, some
right?
of it we've never broken it down quite like this, and never together. Like part of what we're
Yeah,
talking about
that's
now
true.
is also like the emotional part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What it means to be in love with a new child, struggling for a dream that you haven't achieved but that you want badly, and now it has the added pressure on it of you've got a kid,
Yeah.
and the kid
Mm-hmm.
needs a lot of attention, and you're trying to do your art, which seems maybe very superfluous to some people. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, as an artist, it's enormously meaningful to have a show like the Whitney Biennial, that kind of recognition, and you know that it would change your relationship most likely to your family, to your spouse, were you to have something that was as precious as that. So it's navigating all these things, I think, right? Our relationship, our love, our I mean, this is about parenting a little bit, right?
Yes, yeah, but
Because
yes and no. It's also how do you deal with your art and everything around it, right? Because in an ideal world, it's like let's just make art and do art and nothing else. But that's not the case, right? We have to live, we have to eat, we have to get money, we have to parent, we have to be brothers, sisters, everything. You have to live, right? The world comes in, so we cannot just focus on let's make art, as much as we wish we could. But
I mean, unless it's an old model of how it was, right? Whereas I'm home taking care of the kid, Delia's doing her dream, or vice versa, right? That's what it's been like, for
yeah.
ages. Someone's ego is out there doing all their art and making it the number one priority, and family is number two, and there's somebody like a husband or wife that's really carrying the load. But that
Yeah.
wasn't our paradigm to start with. It
No.
was to share, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, we're also an art team, I mean, a lot of artists, they have couples together, right? They're a couple, but they're not an art team, which is different. And I think that also makes it a little bit more difficult. It could make it more difficult, right? Because
What, being separate or a team is more difficult?
not being separate, not being a team, right? Because separate, each artist wants to show their own ego. and it's more difficult and more competition between them, even though they love each other, than if you're an art team, right? When you're an art
Right.
team,
They might support one another, as I'm sure many artists do, but one person gets into the biennial and the other doesn't. One person gets a major purchase of some of their work and the other doesn't. They're happy for each other, but we all know the feelings that are there, the tensions that are there, right? So this is just part of what we navigate. Um, but to move on to what happened, you were saying we saw in the newspaper that there was curators announced for the Whitney Biennial. As you said, we sent them 5 or 6 letters with a link in there to a video of our work and a very short description of what we were doing. And then,
yeah, and then we just I think we sent more than one actually.
more than one letter, one
No,
email.
one more than a letter with the work. I think we sent it twice with the work,
Yeah, well, with it,
right?
with a,
Yeah,
yeah, we sent a physical letter too. We sent emails,
right.
physical letters. When we found out there was
Mm.
a biennial coordinator, we sent it to yet another
To
person,
different people,
as opposed
right?
to the curators. And we were really feeling like, we haven't heard from them. What's going on? I mean,
Yeah.
like I'm sure you've all felt like, why haven't they written back? And I still feel that people should write back, right? Even if they decide, oh, no, you're not a right fit. I think we all deserve a response, which is why, in our book we always encourage a follow up. And the
Right.
reason I talk about it as our book is because I wrote a book making it in the art world, but then we also translated that into Spanish.
Well, we
And
wrote another edition. We didn't really translate it. We added
mm,
more stories, more information. So, and that one we wrote together in Spanish, but with a lot more information than the English.
because Delia is a native of Madrid.
Yeah.
So then we wrote those letters and we waited, right? It was very difficult to just wait. We kept doing the meditations that didn't stop, visualizing ourselves. And then the amazing thing happened. We got a call for an interview. Remember that?
Well, that was an incredible time actually, because we didn't really talk to the person in that moment. They left us a voicemail, to call back, but they didn't really say what
But
were
but
they
it, was, but it
calling.
was for the interview. They just wanted to
Yes,
talk to us.
yes.
And at first we were like, "Oh my God, are we in?" No, they just want to talk to us. And I remember talking to some friends. I mean, and even among artists, right? There's jealousy. And as soon as we got excited and started talking about it, we could feel that right away. Talked to one of our friends. We said, "Hey, we got a call from the Whitney Biennial. They want to interview us." And he said, they interview a million people. It doesn't really mean anything. They interview everybody. I said, oh, okay. you know.
Right.
Uh,
So
so then we went in for the interview. We got a
we went,
babysitter,
yeah.
which is always difficult, and or it was for us, right? Paying for a babysitter or someone you trust, and then we
Because,
went there to
yeah.
the Whitney Museum. Like, what are we gonna say? We didn't really know. Well, we prepared ourselves a little bit. How did we prepare ourselves?
Well, we had I don't know. We brought up our work, and no, we actually didn't want to, since we are conceptual artists. I mean, we did not want to have like a past. So, I mean, this is actually the very interesting thing too, right? That most artists think that they need this whole huge resume, this whole huge information of what they've done, where they've been, what school they went to, everything, right? And we did not give them any of that. Zero. We didn't give them anything.
So we're sitting there in front of the curator, and the curator's like, "Oh, you didn't send me your resume. I asked for that." And that's when we told them,
Yeah, we erased all our past. That's what basically we said. We
yeah, we don't.
erased all our past. I know it sounds crazy, right? But we are this type of artists. We are conceptual artists, and we stay in the moment of our performance too, because we're also performance. So at that moment, we were staying in our performance basically, and we kept on talking to the curator from the stand from the stand of like we do not have a past, and we do not believe in the past. So all of that has been erased, and you're not going to have access to it. Period.
Because everything
I mean,
in a way, I know it sounds crazy, right? And it was kind of funny, right? I mean, for us that was
yeah, but it's
it was easy to do that because we didn't have to bring in any materials. But it's also like you talked about performance. You know, everything is kind of about how you act and present yourself, right? So there is a bit of like what we call code switching, right? You talk one way to your parents, you talk another way to your friends, you talk another way to a teacher. So we're talking to a curator, right? You know, we're kind of um, presenting ourselves in a way that is kind of open, but because we hadn't had major shows also and didn't go to schools that were major schools like Yale or anything like that. We don't have any of those accolades. That we wanted them to base it just on who we are because that's all we had.
well, and also
Is
we
our art and who we are.
right. We wanted them to see us as two people, and who the type of artists that we were and who we are, not see us for all the networking or the school that you went to or the person that no, just see us for our art, who we are, and this is what we have to offer. And so then what
Well, so then we had to talk with her, and again we're like, is she gonna tell us? I mean, that was part of it in my mind. Is she gonna tell us we're in? Like, how does this work? But actually, at the end of the talk, like,
yeah, but also before you keep on going, that was actually very that took a lot of guts, also of believing on your art, right? You have to believe on your art, that your art can speak for it, right? The art in itself can speak instead of you, because we believe on our art. And we went all the way. I mean, think about it for a minute, right? It's like we are being interviewed for the Whitney Biennial, and we are playing this part that we are believing in our art, and it doesn't matter what it is that we're going to do. What we were doing was, I don't think I've ever heard anything at all that is done. Even the curator told us afterwards as well, right? So that showed that you need to believe on what you really believe, which is your art, and then that will speak for itself, right? I mean, it sounds
no, that sounds really accurate. I mean, the contrast to that is thinking you have to have accolades, you have to have references, you have to be in the right community, you have to know people and be known in the community. We were not known in the community. We were not names in the community that people talked about. We didn't have that kind of visibility in shows, which is also why we had to walk in there as a blank slate because we were blank slates in many ways. Of course, we had some shows, but nothing that we could, show her to impress her and make her feel like, oh yeah, you're one of the, Yale MFA
yeah.
graduates, like that kind of mythology. We weren't any of those things, and we aren't any of those things. So,
And we believe that that's not that that doesn't mean everything either,
well, and
meaning
you guys know that
right.
doesn't mean anything really. It doesn't mean
Right.
anything. This,
Right,
right?
exactly. So anyway, so then from there we had the whole entire interview. We stayed in place with our true to ourselves, who we were as artists and our art, and we took the risk to go that route, and we left, and then
But before
yeah.
you say it, when we left, the curator said that line that seems kind of deadly. Right?
Oh,
She said, "Here's my card. Um, please keep in touch."
oh
Right?
God,
And she also said, "If you can send me anything
yeah.
about your past, I'd appreciate it. Like, where you
Anything.
went to school, anything that you think you can send us."
Mm-hmm.
So we said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, okay, we'll think about it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
but then I think we just wrote them a letter again.
Yeah, but it was an unreadable letter.
No,
Do you
no,
remember?
right? Yeah, it was all about it. Well, it was a little bit like a novel, maybe like a little bit
Well,
of
it was
like
almost
a
like stream of
essay.
consciousness,
Yeah,
and instead of
right.
telling her, "Oh, we went here, we went there,"
No.
because again, we didn't have accolades, we didn't have this bio and this wowing resume, so we each wrote a piece about ourselves, our bio, starting from when we were born,
Mm-hmm.
and in without any
And how we
without any paragraph breaks, just like this, straight line. So a huge page of dense text that
and
was like,
how we became right. So what that piece of writing was saying is basically how we became to be who we are, the type of artist that we are, and what kind of art we make, and how we, got together as an art collaborative, and expanded from there.
but it was far from like what you would call a bio or an artist
Yeah,
statement. It
no.
was dense. It started when we were infants. It talked about traumas that we, don't even remember.
No, but
Like
it's all
our
written
parents
in the
moving.
it's all written in the book.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
all those. I think we did include all that in the book. Yeah, the kind of dense letter we wrote. But the point is, as I remember it, it was unreadable. It wasn't the kind of thing where you read through the whole thing. I mean, maybe they did read through the whole thing, but it was so much detail and had so little to do with our art background other than being a kind of a very vulnerable way of telling them like where we came from and who we are and how we got to be who we are and how we met one another, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't really like a persuasive art statement or bio like wow these guys were
Yeah.
really something. Right.
Right, yeah. Well, we just let ourselves be who we truly are aware at the time and are still today. But anyway, what we want to,
So it was very
yes.
unorthodox. So moving on, that was how we prepared ourselves, the kind of meditation, the visualization, the preparation, the pressure. Again, we're parents trying to scramble for money and raise our kid. And then we got the interview that happened. Our friends mostly thought that was, kind of minor. It doesn't matter that you got an interview. The likelihood that you'll get in the biennial is small. And
If
then
none at all.
yeah, if not,
Basically, they
if not
told
at
us
all.
none.
But again, these are
Yeah.
good friends that still are competitive, right? The art world is like that. It's very personal, and even the people who love you, they're trying to get into the biennial too. Can
Everybody is.
can have those feelings, which we all have. I'm not saying we're above those feelings either. These are feelings that we have, but it's part of the landscape of what we're dealing with. And then. Uh, the call, right? I was visiting my mother, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
um, because
And
we were wondering, like, are we gonna hear? Did like, are they gonna tell us something one way or
yeah,
another?
it was taking longer than we expected, and we were worried, and we were getting a little bit, you know how you get, right? Like you're expecting to get into a show, you're expecting to get into any type of exhibition or anything, even you want to get a residency, whatever you want to do, you really hope that you're gonna get it this time, right? And so we were starting to feel that kind of energy, like, oh no, not again, right? Oh no, it's not happening. So, and then I forgot, I think you got the call?
No, you got the call because I was at my mom's house, and you got a call. You were taking care of our son, right?
Yeah,
Again, this was an infant. You
yeah.
got as I remember, you got a call, and just correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, but they said, "Yeah, we have to talk to you for a minute," and you said, "Wait a minute, I have to, do something with the baby," and they said. This won't take long.
Oh yeah,
No,
right, right.
no, I think you said, "Can I call you back?"
Yeah, can I call you back? Right, right. So because they wanted to talk to us in that moment, but I was really something was happening with the baby that I needed to care for the baby before even the Whitney Biennial. I mean, it's kind of funny, but that's what happened. And then we just yeah, and they, well, no, but they did say it won't take too long, and then okay, can you please hurry up because I need to go. And then basically they just said, yeah, well, you got in the Whitney Biennial. We're going to give you all the information, so and so. And I was like, what? I was kind of like, I couldn't believe it. And you weren't there, right? So I
Right.
had to call him and I told him, and it was super exciting.
And then what happened was I was really excited because I thought, oh my god, oh my god, really? That's what they said. What else did they say? And as I remember, you said they said don't tell anybody, and they
Yeah,
said,
we couldn't tell anybody
but
exactly.
you said we can tell our parents, right?
No, nobody. So you cannot tell
They said
anybody
no.
until the names come
Yeah,
out.
they said
Yeah.
especially your parents because your parents are going to tell somebody else.
You
So
can't, and you had to sign something, and Yeah, so anyway, it was amazingly exciting, and that is basically the story.
That was the
That
story of getting in, right? And then getting in, more things happened. Like that are very exciting. Like there's a party, and you realize there's a kind of an order to these things. The opening, it's not like any opening. There's the public opening, and there's the pre-opening, and then there's the artist
artist
opening,
opening,
right? Which
yeah.
you only have two tickets plus two more people,
Yeah.
and so that's, I think that was one of the times that felt amazing. You're invited to this party at the Whitney Museum, celebrating everybody that's in there, and and it's not just artists like us that are unknown. Most of the artists were extremely well known. Not all. They Biennial always pairs artists that are lesser known
Yes.
artists with artists that are household names, right? That you'd know. But as I remember that party, again, we that time we brought our baby to the party. It was like strapped to my chest, um, and that was a really, I remember, special night, right? Just that feeling of
Yeah,
like,
and then there was the second where we also did a performance, the second party, for everybody, right? The pre,
right,
it was the pre
yeah. There's multiple openings,
multiple
right?
openings, but yeah, so one of them we also did a performance in there, which was also pretty fun
It
and
was just, it was showing
exciting.
actually visual work in that performance, visual work. But
Yeah.
then there was well, then, as you referenced before, we were talking to the curator afterwards,
Mm.
because we said, we don't have a gallery. How many artists do you pick like this? And she said, you're the story every artist wants to hear.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's partly why we're telling you this story today. The reason every artist wants to hear this story is
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't represented by a gallery. We asked directly and we got in. But we weren't the only ones that year. You see, there's a difference between what they call solicited and unsolicited, right? We were unsolicited,
Yeah.
right? That means they didn't ask us to send in work, which many of the artists they do. But there's a space in between. There was another video artist in that show who told us, well, actually, we asked the curator about this,
Mm.
and she said, well, she wasn't really solicited either. She was unsolicited, solicited. And we said, what do you mean? She said, well, she wrote to us and said, different tactic than ours. Said, can I send you work? This is what I'm doing. And meaning, can she send links to some of her work? And they said, yes, please send us links. Now it's considered solicited. But that woman, same way, got in
Mm.
by asking, and no inner circle, no community networking, none of that, right? And got in. And there was many other artists that got in that year that we talked to without networking. So so what's next? That was the getting into it, right? And
Yeah, so basically what we want to do now is share this story of how we got into the Whitney Biennial. So because we would love to just give this information to all of you artists that believe that it's impossible, that it's not possible, that you have to follow all these rules. And we're telling you straight from us, an art team that got in the Whitney Biennial with no rules at all of any.
well, I mean, we presented ourselves in a certain way, right? So this is also how Praxis Center started and how our coaching started. Because what happened right after the Whitney Biennial, or during it rather, is friends would say to us, or just people that would come into our studio, they'd say, how did you get into the Whitney Biennial? And rather than saying what everyone was telling us, which is, oh, it's very difficult. You have to be chosen. You have to be special. You have to network. You have to be in the right circle. You have to be this, that. That's the answers we were getting when we
All
asked.
the time,
I
yeah.
mean, like just shut door.
Frustrating.
Yeah, so we told them everything. We said, okay, we did this, we sent this letter, we did this, then we did this, we wrote this, and then
So all that information actually and all the letters, I mean, all more in detail is all in the book.
well, in some ways, we're getting into more detail here. In the
Yeah.
book, there's a synopsis of this for sure, and the letters we wrote most of them. But then, what happened was, as people started asking us, right, like, how did you get in? We told them, but then we realized we're talking to a painter, we're talking to a sculptor, we're talking to someone who does installation. These were all new acquaintances asking us how we got in. It wasn't really enough for us just to tell them, oh, this is what we do. Do it like this, because it's different for everybody, right? How does a painter who's doing abstract work present themselves? How do they frame it? How do they write about it in a paragraph so it sounds interesting, part of the art world conversation, part of the institutional mission, right? So that's when we started coaching, right? Which I was the face of, and the coaching was designing individual plans for everyone, because and that's still what we do. We began Praxis Center, which is an artist-run initiative, the two of us. Um,
Well, that's what we wanted to do, basically. That's what we became, Praxis Center, from that. So we can share all these tips with other fellow artists, right? So we can share it and give you the information from our own experience as well, right? From what we've been through, all the failures, all the sufferings, all the fun stuff, all the achievements, from bad to good, and we wanted to share it because we thought, nobody shares us anything like this with the world. Nobody, right? Most of the
mm.
people usually is like, yeah, they always
we
give.
we never found anybody to share with
Yeah, they
us.
were always giving you like, oh, I don't know, oh, this way, oh, and it's kind of
Oh,
like,
you have to be part of the in crowd. I remember someone told me, Brainerd, in order to be on the inside, you have to be on the inside.
mm,
Like
meaning like you cannot go outside,
like
right?
like
So
what does
no
that mean, right?
information
Again,
whatsoever.
it's like closed door, right? So we not only started Praxis Center as an artist-run initiative to share all this information, but part of Praxis Center has a coaching element, which meant that we develop individual plans for everybody. Because again, it's not a cookie cutter process.
No.
You can do much of what we did, but you may live in another part of the world. You may do a kind of work that's hard to talk about. You may not want to contextualize or frame your work, and that's all cool, but there's a way you can present yourself. And so that became um, a big part of what we do, again, as a collaborative, to help artists to build strategies, to look at their work, to understand where they're coming from, and then to give them a custom roadmap so they can get there, whether it's the Whitney Biennial or other major shows, because it's about how you present yourself and connect with someone.
That we also, another new initiative that we just did, which we love, is we put the artist's work in front of a lot of different curators, collectors, and gallerists. We do that every single week. We run this round table, and before the either collector, curator, or writers, or whichever is that week, they always get to see the artist's work of the members of Praxis Center. So we put your work in front of them. So it's a little bit of a help for so they can see your work and not just like just talk about it or whatever. No, they can actually see your work, which is very special and important, and I think everybody's enjoying a lot. All the curators also are liking that because it's easier for them also to see and to discover new artists.
Because instead of it's a live Zoom talk, and I want to tell you more about how we also got a solo show at the Whitney briefly before we
Another
go.
story. That's another video.
But well, we can say something briefly about it here. But essentially, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about Praxis Center at the end, because it's a community, and what we didn't have at the beginning, right, was a community.
Yeah,
We didn't really have people
that's
saying
true.
you can do this. It's not a reach for you guys to want to be in the Whitney Biennial, and we didn't have that kind of encouragement, and we certainly didn't have somebody looking over our shoulder and saying I would do it slightly different. I would try it like this, right? And so in Praxis Center, not only are we doing that, like literally helping you with your strategy, looking at your website, but then there's also these curators that come every single week that you can ask questions to, and these aren't like necessarily minor curator. These are curators that have worked at the Venice
Yeah.
Biennial, the Whitney Biennial, others. You can ask them questions, and they're looking at your work. But I just want to say briefly before we go, Can we talk a little bit about the solo show we got there?
I think we should do that a whole video about that because that's a
Okay.
whole
Oh,
other
okay.
amazing story that we'll tell you about.
Right. So we won't talk about that now. In the book, it does detail all that, but essentially, and that will be another video that
Mm-hmm.
we'll do. We
Yes.
asked for a solo show and we got it, and then they called it a commission, which tells you something about how institutions work, right? You think, oh, it's a commission. That feeds the mythology of we pick them, we
Mm-hmm.
commission them.
Mm-hmm.
But in actual fact, we asked for that show, and and they gave us everything we asked for, and we really asked for the moon there. But
Mm-hmm.
again, we won't go into that, like you
More.
say. That's the next video.
The next video, yeah.
However, if you want, this kind of support that we've created with curators and more. Um, you can join Praxis. Praxis is not an expensive venture to be in. There's monthly, there's annual payments. The annual membership gives you the portfolio service that Delia is talking about. It
Correct.
also gives you physical copies of the books that we're talking about. And it also gives you us overlooking literally your work and giving you a strategy. So let's say, no matter where you live in the world, you can be in the Whitney Biennial. They're not favoring a certain type of artist. There's all kinds of theories about that, but they're not, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
as though you have to be part of the art world conversation, a known quantity,
Mm.
that you have to network. All of that is kind of myth making to make you feel that you can't achieve it. And it's my feeling that that's part of like the capitalist system, this idea that only like some people can get in there. And that simply isn't true. We were outliers. You may feel yourself like you're an outlier, but these dreams can come true.
Yes,
Um,
I mean, and it's very important to believe that because, we're telling you from that point of view and that side that dreams do come true. It's pretty incredible, and I know you hear that everywhere and from all kinds of different forms. Movies, theater, singing, any type of dream, and they do come true. So you just gotta keep on going. I know it's hard, right? It's really difficult because sometimes you feel like, oh my god, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I want to give up. um but there's that's why it's important also to follow these steps to center yourself in a state of peace, and practice some type of every single day to yourself on how you're going to get to the state of mind where you will not feel like you want to give up, and you will be at peace with what you're doing and believe in your art as for what it is. um, so anyway, so I think that's all of it for now, and we'll be back again with another story about the solo show at the Whitney.
and if you're interested in being part of the community and really getting personal attention from us, from myself, there's more information on this page about how to do this. And if you're interested in that, you will get all the information we have, and it will also be specific to your exact situation. And along with membership, especially annual, you'll get physical books mailed to you that go into detail about not only the story that we just told, although we went into even more detail, I think, than we've ever gone into, but you'll also hear more about exactly how we got a solo show at the Whitney by asking and more. So I think I want to sign off by just reiterating a bit of what you said. If you want to say that more again, but the idea of, which sounds cliche, go for your dream, go for it. Like I'm sure you've heard also that like the bigger your dream is, in some ways the easier it is to get. Just wanting to get into
Mm.
like a local show or something like that, that's all good too. But there's more competition on those levels than on the highest levels.
Mm.
So uh, it, you know that's my thought now. I mean, maybe you can add to that, because what you're saying was really beautiful about like your dreams and finding them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not being afraid to embrace them is in part what you were saying, right?
Yes, exactly. But that could also sound also very motivational. So therefore, I want to keep repeating that there is a form that you have to follow to be in a state of mind so you can allow that to happen. Because if we're not in that state of mind, it's difficult because a lot of energy comes from many different sources, and then it gets everything convoluted, and then you cannot shine. I mean, seriously, that's the way it is. So if you want to shine, you have to have that state of mind. And we will give more information about that. We're working also on another type of a course that we're gonna add, at Praxis Center on how to perform every single act every single day, on how to stay true to your own spirituality or your own peace of mind, to find that state so you can actually just be be free to be able to manifest whatever you want.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful thing, really, right? I mean, because as you're saying, there's that state of mind, which is critical, right? In a way, we talked today about a lot of the technical steps, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're big on in praxis too, is the technical steps. Oh, write your bio this way, or do this with your website, or adjust this. We look over your work, talk about the strongest work, things like that. But I think you know what Delia was just saying is what kind of colors everything, right? Which is much more emotional and about alignment, right?
Yes,
Because
alignment.
it's one thing to say, but as you're saying, the course we're developing about actually getting into that mindset
Mm-hmm.
is,
That's
you know,
part of the practice. Part of the practice to be able to allow yourself to achieve whichever you might want to achieve. So, anyways, so this was great. We really enjoyed giving you all this information, and we'll see you again.
thanks for listening.
Thanks for
If you have
listening.
any questions, you can
Just reach out.
reach out. There's more information here. Thanks for your interest, and yeah, we wish that you get your dream, and at the very least outline it and go for it, because history tells us that um, that's the kind of thing that makes dreams happen, right? At the very least, going for it in a big way.
That's right. So go for it.
Thanks for
Thank
watching with us
you.
today.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.